There has been considerable media coverage on China's genocide of Uyghurs and its enslavement of prisoners. However, did you know that over the past 36 years, China has created an extensive international state-sponsored organ trafficking industry? When did it start? The CCP began implementing organ harvesting from executed prisoners in 1984. They mainly focused on extracting organs, tissue, and collagen, which it then resells for medical or cosmetic uses. While China is not the only country doing this, it is the only country in which the trade is openly state-sponsored and on an industrial scale unmatched anywhere else. Adding to the horror, China has grown so powerful since 1984 that it can now openly and shamelessly circumvent international condemnation, judicial oversight, and norms, thus operating in absolute impunity. How does it work? In 2001, a former Chinese army doctor, Wang Guoqi, a 38-year-old political asylum seeker, told the U.S. House Committee that he had harvested organs from executed prisoners and at some point removed the skin from a man who had not yet died. Injections of the anticoagulant heparin were frequently given to the victims by hospital staff before the executions. After a victim was shot in the back of the head, transplant surgeons rushed to remove the liver, kidneys, cornea, and other organs either in an ambulance at the execution site or at a crematory. Wang Guoqi reported that he removed skin and corneas from the bodies of more than 100 prisoners between 1989 and 1995. He described that it took 20 minutes or less to remove all the skin from a body, leaving an ugly heap of muscles, the blood vessels still bleeding, or all viscera exposed. Afterward, the skin was processed and chilled in preparation for later transplants, for which organ buyers would pay 100 yuan, around $12 for each 10 square centimeters of skin. The other organs were also sold. For every prisoner who was robbed of organs, court officials were paid around $40. It isn't likely the prisoners were guilty of anything other than being healthy 25 to 30-year-old men and women. That same year, transplant doctors in the United States reported that an alarming number of organ buyers were arriving for post-transplant care after traveling to China for organs, in particular kidneys, which they would have spent years waiting for in the West. Organ buyers tend to travel to India, the Philippines, Russia, Turkey, Israel, and other organized crime-run countries. The biggest supplier is China, even though volunteer organ donation is relatively rare in China. Many, not most, of the organs available in China are believed to come from executed prisoners. What were the organs used for? In 2005, a Chinese cosmetics company used the skin harvested from the corpses of executed prisoners to develop beauty products for the European market. Agents for the firm admitted the company was developing collagen for lip and wrinkle treatments from skin taken from prisoners after they have been shot. They also called the use of skin from executed prisoners as traditional and nothing to make such a big fuss about. China can manufacture the same human collagen for less than 5% of what it costs in the West. In 2008, the plastinated bodies of possible political prisoners were shown in the premiere exhibitions from the United States and the Body Works exhibit from Germany. The Body Works exhibit is operated by the German anatomist Gunther von Hagens, who denies the bodies he displays were from executed political prisoners. However, an investigation revealed that in 2001 he obtained at least 2 bodies that he knew were shot in the back of the head. In damning email correspondence from Prof. von Hagen's Chinese manager, Sui Hongjin. In 2001, Dr. Hongjin boasted that he had obtained the bodies of a young man and young woman who had died that morning. The pair were fresh examples of the highest quality, the doctor said, and had been killed by a shot to the head. Prof. von Hagens has previously been accused of buying the corpses of prisoners, homeless people, and the mentally ill in Russia. An accusation he flimsily denies. In 2004, he spent some time living in the Chinese city of Dalian, where he dissected and preserved corpses at a center. The center was close to 3 prison camps where political detainees and members of the banned Falun Gong movement are kept. Premier Exhibitions, based in Atlanta, for their part, put up a disclaimer on their website confirming the remains are from Chinese citizens or residents originally received by Chinese police. The Chinese Bureau of Police may receive bodies from Chinese prisons. Premier cannot independently verify that the human remains you are viewing are not those of persons who were incarcerated in Chinese prisons. Premier also reported that all of its bodies are plastinated at the Dalian Medical University in Dalian, China. However, the president of the Dalian Medical University denied Premier's claim. The supplier was instead a private, for-profit company called the Dalian MedUni Plastination Labs located 30 miles away from the Dalian Medical University. Who are the victims of China's organ trafficking? In 1996, articles began to surface in state-run Chinese media outlets decrying Falun Gong as pseudoscientific, feudal, superstitious nonsense. Practitioners quickly found themselves under increasing surveillance and scrutiny. Falun Gong is a religious movement commonly regarded as a cult by Western standards, but more or less it is an exercise-based movement with mystical elements. In 2006, transcripts of calls to detention centers and organ transplant clinics exposed officials admitting organs from Falun Gong could be made available for speedy use. A doctor admitted that the organs were being taken from healthy prisoners in their 30s that had been hand-selected. Since the prosecution of the Falun Gong began, the number of organ transplants in China has gone up, not matching official numbers from the CCP. According to reports, approximately 65,000 Falun Gong dissidents would be harvested before the 2008 Olympics. What was the international reaction? In 2006, two Canadian human rights attorneys, David Kilgour and David Motters, released the report into allegations of organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners in China. After months of investigation throughout 12 provinces in China, we come to the conclusion that these allegations are true, said the Honourable David Kilgour, JD, the former Canadian Secretary of State. In 2011, Chinese medical authorities admit that the lion's share of transplant organs originate with executions. In 2012, during U.S. congressional testimony by Ethan Gutman, it was revealed that no support for victims or investigators materialized in the 6 years since the organ harvesting report was released. We have admissions on tape, transcribed, translated throughout China, about 15% of the calls saying yes, we have organs of Falun Gong practitioners for sale. In 2012, presentations about transplantation in China continued to be made at international conferences, despite China's massive state-run organ trafficking operation. In late 2014, China announced that it would switch to a completely voluntary donation-based system. According to official statistics, there are more than 100 hospitals in China approved to carry out organ transplant operations. Investigators verified and confirmed 712 hospitals which carry out liver and kidney transplants. The number of actual transplants could be hundreds of thousands larger than China reports. By 2016, Chinese surgeons are transplanting between 60,000 and 100,000 organs a year using Falun Gong, Uyghur Muslims, Tibetans, and Christians as a pool for human tissue. In 2019, an independent tribunal, China Tribunal, in London concluded that the killing of detainees in China for organ transplants is continuing and victims include imprisoned Falun Gong and Uyghurs. Over 50 witnesses testified at the independent tribunal and huge volumes of written evidence were analyzed. The evidence included research showing the deliberate falsification of China's public organ donation data to support trade in human organs. The China Tribunal's judgment concluded that an elaborate state-backed program to incarcerate and kill its own citizens in the illicit trade of forced organ harvesting has been taking place for decades. In 2020, witnesses said Uyghurs Muslims in Xinjiang were being slaughtered on demand in China for halal organs bound for Saudi customers. There are no plausible grounds for doubt that China is running a massive industry of human farms and has been, in full view of the world, for decades. Not only is the rest of the world not objecting to China's organ harvesting, but an increasing number of regions have also joined the trade. As China increases its aggression towards its neighbors, its supply of political prisoners to feed the international organ harvesting industry is expanding as fast as its ever-growing empire of terror.